I have one of the greatest jobs in the planet. It was a couple of years ago now. Everything is so disorienting in terms of time with that little interruption we've called a pandemic. But prior to the pandemic, I was in South Africa. That's how cool my job is. And I was speaking to a variety of business professionals down in South Africa, had some amazing times in the African bush, got to see some of the kind of temporary housing villages in South Africa. It was really quite an illuminating experience. Of all of the joys of South Africa, one of the greatest of all was that I got to meet today's guest. She is an expert in customer experience, has been doing it for a long time, has been making organizations more effective in the way they create success for the customers that they serve. So she creates customer success for her customers so they can create customer success for theirs. She is the one and only, the legendary, the hero of mine, Samantha Burns. Good to see you, Samantha. How are you in South Africa?
Good to see you, Joseph. Very well, very well. Hope you're well too.
We're kind of in a late hour here in order for you to do our live stream in regular sequence. So thanks for sticking around into the evening for this.
Great, more than happy.
All right, so let's talk about, I teed you up as the great Samantha Burns. So let's talk a little about your journey, kind of how you got to where you are in this company of yours, Brilliance CX, and how did we get here? Kind of the short version. We only have an hour, so just give me the highlights.
Very short version, really. I started out in my career in recruitment, actually, and then from there went into public relations, and then I was approached by a company to say, "Oh, we really need your public relations skills. We need something similar." It just turned out it was nothing similar at all. It was that they really needed someone to manage their customer retention. And it's a different approach to what PR is about. But I absolutely fell in love with the customer from that point on. So being involved in customer-focused work for over 25 years, did my MBA in customer loyalty, communication, psychology. So that mix I was able to apply into numerous organizations that I worked for, and had such pleasure and being able to help companies succeed for their customers.
Well, let's be honest, you went into one of the harder areas to do it in, right? You did it in a highly regulated world. You did a lot of your work in a highly regulated world. A bank. The answer is no. What is the question, right? And in most customer experience minds, the answer is yes. So help me understand kind of what did you do in the banking sphere and maintain some kind of effect on helping people elevate customer experiences as opposed to restrict them?
Yeah. So I think the amazing focus in terms of the regulated environment was because there was such an emphasis on the customer outcomes, which to me is actually not opposed to focusing on the customer. It's trying to drive organizations in financial services to do more for their customers. So, and to really look at the outcomes for what the customer is experiencing, not just what they are trying to offer the customers. So it was actually that landed in my lap because I had such opportunity to help companies from a cultural perspective, from a values perspective, from a process, strategy, operations, HR, all of those elements to drive a not only customer focused, but an ethic that says we want to do what's good and right for customers, and make sure that we are fair and transparent and honest in the process.
Well, I love that. I think that's a great point to be said. I mean, if you don't keep people safe and if you don't do things kind of in an organized way, you can really hurt customers. So this notion that just being regulated doesn't necessarily mean de facto that you're not ethical and responsible in the way you manage customers.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So here's the thing that I think is the secret sauce, because you know, you're a speaker, you're a coach, you do a lot of the other things that many of us in this space do. But the one thing you do that I think differentiates you from most all of the others who are in this industry is that you then really started to think about, particularly for small and mid-sized businesses, what were some of the things that they were missing from an infrastructure perspective that larger clients had. So when I go and work with Fortune 500 companies, they have these very robust technology suites that help them manage customer complaints or deal with all kinds of different concerns of the customer relationship management databases that are really elegant, and escalation models, all kinds of stuff. But the average person that I work with, and I don't work with that many in the small and medium market, but when I do, they're like clueless and or overmatched with the technology. So the cool part of you is that you figured out how to actually create tools for them, even though most of folks like me are not technologists. You somehow pulled this off. So let's figure out how you did that and what are some of the things that you have created as part of your technology toolkit to supplement your guidance on elevating customer success.
Yeah, thank you. It started several years ago. Oh gosh, let me say more like 20 years ago, where in trying to retain corporate clients, we recognized that they needed more management information. And with that management information, they were able to get a better perspective as to what that company really was doing for them. And that started my venture into information technology, enhancing systems to be able to provide them with that type of data, that insight into what was going on in their client company, because the host company had that data about them. So from there, I think my fascination with systems is really because I enjoy the design of creating something that meets a particular client need. So whether it's a process design, a policy design, a designing, a communications campaign, but the systems design really cottoned on pretty well, simply because I was able to meet very real needs and do so as software as a service. So clients then didn't need to buy the software themselves. They simply subscribed online. So whether it was one user or hundreds of users, it didn't matter, as long as they had a need relating to customers. And specifically what I focus on is the complaints management, customer feedback, and also more the operational elements such as the continuous improvement.
All right, so let's go with that a bit. So yeah. I mean, I literally have clients, and I say I don't work with any small and mid-sized clients, but when I do, I have clients who have had nothing more than an Excel spreadsheet where someone is manually encoding customer complaints, and the ability to track and really know how they were resolved and have any kind of dashboard that you can use to make decisions about whether we're improving or getting worse. It's just not there. And that's kind of the space you stepped into. So maybe you can talk a little bit about, let's just stay with customer complaint management, for example. Sure. What kinds of solutions are available for small and mid-sized business owners who say, I really want to get my arms around leveraging complaints and making our company better as a result of them, and turning those complainers into raving fans?
Yeah, so the systems that we've got are really three that speak to that. One is a very simple complaints reporting tool, which is more for the smaller entities or someone who just needs a user or two. Then we have the complaints or the customer feedback tool, which incorporates both complaints and compliments, so that you can track how many complaints you're actually converting into compliments, or other compliments that you're getting anyway that you're wanting to track as a holistic feedback mechanism. And that then also incorporates your other features such as escalations, special reminders that need to go out, and so on. And then the third tool, which some companies take in tandem, is a conduct improvement tool. So it's how to improve the ongoing business because of issues that you've picked up from complaints. Simply because complaints isn't just a case of solving a problem for that particular customer. It's about understanding that there's that the complaint is revealing an issue that potentially is not working as well as it should for the organization. So either they need to improve something or innovate in a better way for their products or customers. So this tool can help them keep a track of that.
So I'm going to take a real quick pause just to engage people in the live stream. If you're joining us on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube today, I would love to have you joining in the conversation. If, for example, you know a company that does a really good job of taking care of complaints. You've tendered a complaint, you felt like they managed it really effectively, and you suspect they must have a pretty robust set of tools behind that enables them to do that, at least given how effectively they did it for you. Or maybe you can talk about your own organization or any company that you've worked with where either you've effectively done it or you said, boy, we just couldn't quite leverage that as a gold mine of process improvement for the customer value. So if you have any comments on that, please throw them in the comment section in the chat. So let me go back and take them really slowly with you, if you don't mind. I want to kind of just become super wonky about this. Complaints reporting. This is just getting the data on complaints, right? I mean, that's the key to this.
Yeah. So it also, you can't report on any complaints if you haven't captured sufficient data, and that the capturing of that data, if it's not done consistently across different people who are handling different complaints or different business areas or even different third parties, if you're using third parties to capture that feedback. So an online tool really helps to do that because it brings in some level of consistency based on predetermined categorization of different types of complaints and automatic mapping behind the scenes of how that complaint actually falls into another like meta category. So that then enables more effective reporting, along with the standard stuff such as the turnaround time of complaints, not only the nature of the complaint, but the product that was associated with that complaint, escalations or the process that complaint followed, that you had to forward it to various different people.
So I was just going to say, if you are a small or medium-sized business owner and you don't have a system for this, let me tell you what you're up against. Because having worked with companies like Mercedes-Benz, when they would launch a new product in the United States, for example, they would have such a robust complaint reporting tool. So dealers could let the manufacturer know what complaints were happening out in the field on a given day. They had robust social listening tools that could determine what was being talked about pain points or nagging little issues that customers were having at launch. And there were daily strike teams that were all about getting that intelligence, immediately trying to tamp down those complaints before a raging fire started to go across social media on a new product launch. And if you're not poised to be able to do that in a small basis, you really are losing out. Let me bring in the voice of somebody who's sharing comments with us today. The relationship really starts to hit the next level when there is a challenge. Instead of saying one will help you, can actually help. We have bingo. All right. So I think the message Joe's getting at here is that if you are able to take that information and really leverage that feedback effectively, it is a game changer, which kind of probably takes us a little over to how do you go from a complaints reporting system to an overall customer feedback tool? Maybe you can jump in a little on that.
Sure. I think it's also, it goes beyond the system in that there's the tools that can help customers with companies handle complaints, such as a customer feedback tool, and the complaints reporting tool. But there's the full process in terms of the accessibility of the agents, the inspiration, the motivation of the agents who are handling the complaints, the energy of those agents. Then there's the the back end part of, once one has handled the complaint, how does one analyze that information to then be able to improve ongoing issues within the company, and then give feedback back to customers who've been so helpful to be able to give their feedback in the first place. So I think that that bingo is really that full cycle loop, where the company's not only handling an individual complaint, but they are dealing with constant improvement within the organization, based on that valuable customer feedback.
So I have to share this comment with you, because I think the person who's sharing it with you is actually talking about something you wouldn't mind doing, which is taking a flight maybe
Yes.
in reverse direction from Johannesburg to London. I think that might not be a bad trip for you. But Vasca said that Virgin Atlantic, on a flight from the other direction, London to Johannesburg, went and they had a meal issue. They didn't have what she selected, and they did everything to offer me a higher quality meal instead. They also promised to arrange for my meal on the return flight too. I felt very special and appreciated as a customer. This is a case where the complaint wasn't necessarily even lodged by the customer, but the system was capable of tracking a variation, right? At Ritz-Carlton, we used to call them Mr. Bibs. So these were kind of mistakes, reworks, kind of with inefficient, breakdowns, variations. And so it is this ability to take feedback, sometimes not even from the customer, but maybe from a team member who's observing an experience a customer had. Is that something that you see in some of the other tools that you've created, the ability to not only capture customer voice, but other stakeholders' voices that give you insight to the customer experience?
Yeah. So if a company wishes to, they can use a tool not only for customer feedback, but employee feedback. So employees can comment on issues that the company is doing that may then impact on the customers, as well as third-party feedback. So if you distribute your products through brokers or through franchises, they can give feedback through the tool. But I just need to comment on that Virgin Atlantic experience. I had the same thing, and I was blown away the way they literally gave me a first-class meal. So they brought all the silver cutlery, and not quite silver, but not the plastic stuff. And the service recovery is really part of dealing with any complaint or anything that could potentially become a complaint if you don't handle it well. And so having the systems available to prompt that, or simply just the training and the management support to that people then can go the extra mile, can use their discretion, can go and get that meal and not get into trouble. That just makes such a difference in terms of recovering the need, and it taps into the emotional issue. When a customer is experiencing a complaint, it is such an opportunity to seize that high emotion opportunity and convert them from potentially being a terrorist to an advocate. I just love.
All right, so let me. How dare you back into where I was going to go next? I mean, you're just way me on this. But I think there's several things you just said, and I'd like to unpack them and not let them just skim by. First off, the technology is important to get a grasp on what is and be able to manage it at scale. To me, that is really like the Holy Grail that a lot of people don't have. So having technologies like the ones you've developed for small and mid-sized businesses, that in addition though to having people who can take the data and close the loop and actually seize opportunities. And one of the things I also heard in there was emotion is memory, right? Like a positive emotion is memorable, a negative emotion is memorable. And if emotion is memorable, and if the negative emotion is sitting out on the table and somebody just gave that to you to say, do you want to leave me in this anguish or pain? And you then can't hear it, see it, or act on it, then you've taken away a lot of real power in your organization. And that's where, in addition to your tools, you do a lot of coaching, development on what it takes to use the data in a way that drives organizational change and customer complaint management.
Yeah. And also not only use the data, but handle the incident at real time. So how does an agent then have the skills, the authority, the discretion, the wherewithal, the emotional strength themselves to be able to handle complaints that are already such high emotion issues? Generally, people are frustrated, angry, and or severely disappointed when they're making a complaint. So that emotional connection, and I strongly believe that complaints need to be handled human to human, versus chat box. Great, they have their place. Social media, the other tools have their place, but if you don't have that human connection when it comes to a complaint, you're going to miss that opportunity to really connect with them at an empathetic level that they need. It's just a straightforward human need when it comes to any type of complaint. So bottom line is that that the skills that the employees need to be able to handle that level of emotion and rectify the issue, make the customer feel that they're supported, that you're advocating on their behalf to resolve the issue, that is incredibly valuable. And so often I see companies just not investing well enough in the right people, or giving them sufficient support to be able to do that for their customers. Handling complaints is not just the same as handling any queries. So I strongly encourage both the systems and the people element.
Let me say, it's much more fun to handle inquiries. I mean, right? And many organizations invest a lot of money in their customer relationship management database as it relates to inquiries, sales funnel. They really invest in how do we convert, how do we track them until we get their money, right? This other side of the house is often viewed as a cost center.
Sure.
I'm paying money to put out fires that customers, are having, and I'm not getting any money for putting out the fire, right? And so it does take a fairly erudite leader to realize that the more fires we have after we sell things to people, the harder it is to sell things to people. And the investment in this, I mean, I look at someplace like Zappos, where, having worked with Tony Shea all those years, I mean, he really saw the customer loyalty team, as he would refer to this team, as far more valuable to the organization than any other part of the organization. That ability to respond to the ongoing wants, needs, and desires of customers long after they made a purchase. Talk to me a little bit about your philosophy of kind of dealing with customer complaints in terms of its financial benefits to an organization.
Yeah. I'm a huge believer in it, as you can just imagine, but it's primarily because of research-backed views, in that effective complaints management has been shown to improve customer retention anywhere in the region of 49 to 79%. So, I mean, you just round that up a little bit to get a round number, somewhere between 50 and 80% almost. I mean, that's not small. And it requires an investment in that customer loyalty team. I love that term. If a company is willing to do that, and that the power of well-handled complaints to enable customers to become advocates is far more effective than advertising spend. So simply because people are going to be, they speak about those emotional experiences, as you know.
So, I told you were my hero, but I think I'm adding George Botha to my list of heroes. George just jumped in the conversation and said, and I think this is brilliance beyond brilliance, George. Don't ever join the show again, because you'll keep making us look bad. So just saying. The measure I use between a query and a complaint is not if the customer is right or wrong, but rather if the customer believes he is treated unfairly. Any complaint or query I receive is an opportunity to learn. So yes, I'll take that. You can join the show anytime, George. That was just flat out crazy good. It's not right or wrong. I think there's that line that, the customer is always right. I'm trying to remember, it was several people have been ascribed to have it, whether it was Cesar Ritz or whomever. I ultimately don't think that's true. I think customers are often wrong, but they're always the customer, right? The issue is, did they leave the interaction whole or not? And a complaint, not every complaint, you and I know, not every complaint is actual fact, right? It's a perception, and perception is a pretty strong fact in the marketplace. So I'd like to get your take on it, because I do have people who say, I don't really care about complaints because, I really don't think that they're an indicator of reality. I'm looking at other indicators. Give me a little bit about your sense of what complaints mean, factoring in all the subjective elements therein.
Yeah. I really believe they're a valuable indicator for several reasons. One, it's the customer's opinion, and companies often spend a great deal of money getting their customer's opinion on Net Promoter Score, customer satisfaction score, customer effort score, and meanwhile they've got complaints data that is already telling them a fair amount about their customer experience. Added to which, to recognize that for every complaint, there are many that have not actually complained who had a complaint type experience. So stats range anywhere from 4% to 9% of people who actually would call for a complaint or want to have their complaint dealt with. Only 4 to 9% of them actually bother to raise their voice and get it dealt with. So that means the complaint stats that you're getting are only a small reflection of what's actually going on. And then even when a complaint is unjustified, in other words, the customer has an opinion that is actually, the company wasn't doing anything wrong. There often is something the company could have done to have helped the customer avoid that in the first place. So sometimes it's the case the customer complains, no, they didn't understand that was the case, no one ever told me, and so on. And meanwhile, it was communicated, it was in the brochure or on the website and so on, but it wasn't clear enough, or it wasn't highlighted specifically. So the company can improve, even though they were right. The company has fulfilled their so-called duty, but hasn't gone the extra mile.
I think there really is a need to say the hypothetical, might this be true, right? With every customer complaint. Because if you're wrong about it not being true, it could be, an Achilles heel for your organization. And if it isn't true, you should be able to discern that over time, right? I mean, there won't be enough signal there. It'll just be kind of noise in the system, and you've got a kind of unique, quirky sort of issue on the part of it. But trackable, trending complaints are really the lifeblood of continuous improvement organizations, I think. So, sure. And I think there's something beautiful about saying, we don't have this whole thing figured out yet, but we're on a journey, a tireless journey. And this is the source material that fuels us for that journey. So hugely.
Yeah. And also that on a complaint system, I know ours does it, I'm sure many do, that you need to be able to flag or indicate whether a complaint is classified as justified or not justified. So after having gone through the whole resolution process, dealt with the emotional issues that the customer, you got to look after the customer, keep them safe, but even after the issue is resolved, was that justified or not, so that the system knows whether to, in which category to put it.
Well, so I'm going to just put it to all of you. How certain are you, because I just missed a moment ago, said kind of assume that the complaint could really be legit. How certain are you that the system you're using is legit to help you really get insight into what is the kind of root cause of the problem and what is the actionable items you can take away? And does it enable you to deal with the immediate customer? Because I always think of two levels on complaints, right? Like you got to try to make the individual in front of you whole, and then there's the macro systemic improvement for future customers. Does your system do that? And I can assure you, look, I'm from the U.S. I tend to believe everything is better in the U.S. than anywhere else in the world. I mean, I'm sorry. I try not to develop that jingoistic attitude, but it's kind of inherently built in. So I go to South Africa and I see something that's so remarkably spectacular, and really a thinker in the field who's not only helping companies with their thought leadership, but developing tools. And I keep saying small to mid-size. You can slap me if you'd like, because it might be that you see your business model as also addressing enterprise-wide solutions. I just know that the gap that I see, at least in my part of the world, is small and mid-sized companies having tools that they can afford that give them actionable intelligence around customer complaints. And that's where I see your sweet spot in my part of the world. How do you view your brand? Is it all sizes of companies and scalable to all sizes?
I totally agree with you. Small to mid-size. There are some larger companies, but I think large in your books is like 10 times the size of large of what I see. So I'll stick with that. Small to mid-size organizations, or it really suits larger organizations when they have a distributed network. So their in-house systems or their, the fancy integrated systems that obviously work particularly well for a large organization, they are stuck behind their firewall. So it makes it harder for their third parties to capture information and have that feedback through them directly onto their reports. So that's where it suits the larger organization. But also something to add in terms of the different areas of complaints. One, as you say, in terms of dealing with the individual who's right in front of you. Two, dealing with the data and analyzing that and seeing trends and patterns. And then there's a little gap that some people don't see, and that is not only dealing with systemic issues, but proactively dealing with other clients who potentially may be suffering the same problem. So and I've been involved in teams working on that, where we pick up from the system that there's potentially more customers who are suffering exactly the same problem, that we proactively call them, deal with them. It knocks their socks off. It's almost like saying, we anticipate you might have a complaint. I'm just phoning to tell you we're on it, we're sorting it, and or that issue's gone away now, so don't worry.
Yeah, I feel bad because we're talking about sizes of companies and who we work with. I really have not thought probably well enough for the clients that probably do fit your size that I should be making a recommendation of these tools for. Let me give you an example. I work with a restaurant chain in the South, and they have about 120 operating units, mostly independent franchisees who are running this business, very few company-owned stores. It seems like that's the size company, right? Because in many, and smaller, right? And smaller.
Easily, yeah.
Because this is not a company that has a complaint management system. A lot of this is done very manually. It also is very disenfranchised in terms of multiple units all over and all these different franchisees doing their own thing. That's where these tools are particularly effective. Is that right?
Absolutely. I think also with larger organizations where they already have a complaints management system in place, I'm more than happy to help them improve what they've got. So I'm not here just to say, well, here's my system, and that's, if let's not talk if this doesn't suit you. I want to help them with their whole complaint management process. So whether that's helping them with their people or helping them improve the system they've got, or even coming up with a bespoke development for them, it's about helping them achieve what they need to help their customers succeed. So it's not just.
I love what you just did, because we've been talking about like your tool, like we're talking about a customer feedback tool or this, product improvement tool. But what you just talked about was more than tools, right? Like the tools, as noted, but there is the need to use those tools more effectively, or modify the tools that you have on the table so that you can effectively leverage the data you're getting from the tools. So in either case, I mean, I know your whole life has been about both creating the tools and creating the ability to use them. But what I'm hearing in terms of your solutions is, A, you have the tools that are customizable to a degree, but much of this is really quite, well, I think they're customizable to a large degree, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel for these tools over and over again. And then you may end up finding yourself working with clients who have tools that renovate or innovate in one way or another. So let's talk a little bit about, in a 5-minute window here. So I really want people to get why I should reach out to you at your website, which I assume is the best way to have people connect with you at brilliantcx.com. Why should they go, inquire of your services, have a conversation with you about their customer feedback loop and the way in which they're leveraging continuous improvement?
I'd be really grateful if people reach out. That's fantastic. I'd love to help them. I think the main reason why I think I'd really be, the essence of what I can offer them is one, that I really believe in doing what's best for customers. I really believe in companies that focus on their customer success will improve their success. I really believe in being brilliant for customers. So if companies improve their brilliance, the chances are they're going to improve their success. So, and I have had numerous opportunities to work with clients where we improve their success, we improve their retention, we improve their customer loyalty rates, we improve the way they handle complaints, or the way that they roll out conduct improvement initiatives, particularly those that are driven by regulatory pressures. So the chief reasons I'd be more than delighted to hear from people who might want to reach out to me is if they're wanting to be brilliant for their customers, I'll help them.
I spend a lot of time helping brands kind of really identify the strengths of their brand. And the word brilliance is brilliant. And let me explain what I mean by that. For me, brilliance carries two connotations, right? It's the intellectual brilliance. We have two intellectual phenomena. And then if you go the next step up, which is it's bright, right? It's like in the sense of light. So the combination of intellectual brightness and illuminated brightness, to me, is just rock crazy cool about your branding. So just let's pretend I didn't tell anybody else that but you, but I really do think it's extraordinary. And I think a lot of other people could learn a lot there. Oh my gosh, look at this. Great minds think alike. I swear I did not steal her material. I swear I did not steal her material. All right, Foster. How dare you? All right, so let me let's make sure.
Just to one more comment on brilliance is really my heart is to help companies make their brilliance. So it's their brilliance for customers, and to help that shine, and to help that grow for their continued success. So it really is about their brilliance.
All right. Well, speaking of that, let's see if you can answer this question. How brilliant are you? How does a good company break the customer inertia that bad companies depend upon, especially when it comes to finance and investments? A while back, I was trying to explain and show how a client is being treated unfairly, but gets a shrug and a meh. So thank you for that. I think there's something about nudging customers to not accept mediocrity there. I mean, how do you help customers raise their expectations, particularly if they've been dumbed down from industry standards? I think that's what he's getting at. What's your answer to that? Because that's kind of the inverse of feedback. It's like, how do we get them to invest more and even maybe complaining more because they just are so disheartened?
I think in that case, you're dealing with a customer who is disinvested in the success of the firm that they're dealing with. So they couldn't be bothered to complain, as many customers are. It's just too much effort. It's like, and often it's because that company hasn't made it easy for them to complain, or they can't get hold of a human being, or they don't feel valued when they're interacting with that firm. So numerous reasons can be affecting why that customer might not bother. The issue is, how do you then make that customer bother enough to then switch? Now, most companies are worried about the opposite, that too many of their customers are switching even before bothering to complain. So I think the trend is generally the opposite, that customers just they switch very easily. But in financial services, there is a stickiness, and there is a problem where you have customers who are locked in, because it's just too much hassle to get out, or they can't get out because of some other restriction, whether it be because of their employer that they're now stuck with that firm, or because they've just been with them for such a long time. It's just better the devil they know than one that they don't. So that stickiness is a problem in terms of ever raising that customer into a loyalty state, because while they're retained, and a company can consider them as a retained customer, actually they are a terrorist of note, in that they are there begrudgingly, and will do the reputation of that firm harm. But yeah, they're hard to move if it's too difficult for them to let go of certain other conveniences.
And someday someone will create a way for them to break free, and they will be so excited with the freedom given. Now, granted, there's normally so much product saturation in the financial service industry. It's really the change pain is high. But in the United States, we have a fintech called Dave, right? We have this streamlined service provider of financial services named Dave. What I speak to on that is just this whole mind shift from these gravitas institutions of banking that were so much a part of the infrastructure of the US. There's always something lurking. So be careful that just because they're a customer doesn't mean they're all right. Enough of that. We thank you so much for that question. Again, if you want to know more, go to brilliancecx.com. She will make you look brilliant, which in my case is a particularly big challenge. All right. So here's the lightning round. I promised you that. Anything else you want to say before we go to the lightning round? Anything else other than come and check out the website and drop you a line?
I think the chief thing is, if you want to improve your customer retention, let's chat. If you're wanting to improve your customer complaints or the way that you manage customer complaints, let's chat. And if you have a complaints management system that you're wanting to improve or need to replace, let's chat. Reach out.
All right, we got the chat. Way to do that. Just go to brilliancecx.com. All right, so let me take that out. We're going to do the kind of lightning round. I warned you about it. Just some things to know you. Tell me about Waverly Girls High School.
That was the last school I attended. I switched at the very last year, which was not advisable. I wouldn't encourage people to change schooling in their final year, but I did, and it was. I left all my friends behind at the previous school, so it was quite a journey. But
no, I tried to check them out. I think they don't exist anymore, right? Did it close? Did Waverly close, or did I choose the wrong Waverly?
I haven't a clue. I don't know.
Go check it out, because I thought I looked up Waverly Girls High School, and it looks like their website is no longer available because it hasn't been paid for or something. Which, if it were true, would be something we have in common, because my high school no longer exists. All right, where does the nickname Birdie come from?
My father called me Birdie. Why? I'm not too sure. Maybe because I was forever chirpy. He's never quite explained that one, but I'm still Birdie to this day for my dad.
All right, so Birdie would be something that would have been referenced by someone who looks like this.
There he is. Yes, my dad.
And he lives across the pond or so from y'all, right? And so COVID makes it challenging for families. But what I love, can I just say this, on his Facebook site, I saw that this was the picture he shares. I mean, I think that is so cool, to an adult daughter, adult daughter picture as the primary picture on his profile. Just saying. It's my thing. Speaking of people who share pictures of you on their profile, let me go to, I got to go find it over here. Hold on. It's right there. Okay. So who's that?
That, believe it or not, is my gorgeous mother. Some would say my sister, but actually my absolutely stunning mum.
So I'll talk about your husband in a little bit, but he must have seen your mom and said, "Well, this is going to work out well for me." All right,
let's hope so. We will see.
We'll see. I guess age and gravity affect us all, right? I mean, God knows. So I try to join you every once in a while, but now I'm in the picture. So this is the sunrise or sunset over South African beaches, right? You want to talk a little bit about what that means to you?
That is one of my. I love taking photographs of the sky, sunset, sunrise. This is a sunrise from the previous house we owned, and I had the privilege of getting that view every morning, particularly in wintertime when the sun rose a bit later, and I was awake to see it. But yeah, it's one of my favorite shots.
2 more quick questions. This one I happen to know very well. I am so excited that I have gotten to know who's in this picture. And there he is.
Yes, that's my man.
He's fairly hunky, you know, he really is. I just got to say that about him. And
I would say so.
Yeah, I don't typically make that description of guys, but he's such a brilliant man and such a kind guy. Warren is amazing. So you did good too. I must say, you did okay. All right.
Privilege.
And the last thing, and this is something from actually my journey to South Africa, but the power of the bush. Just talk to me about what the bush means to you, and we'll end on that note, besides telling people to join us at your website.
Right. And you know me well enough to know that the bush and nature is absolutely dear to my heart. I totally love spending time in nature, seeing animals in their natural state, even just seeing birds and trees. It puts me in my element. I think there's such a peace, such a serenity, such an appreciation. Say again?
What you help us all appreciate this. I'm going to get this animal out of my head. Yeah, you help us all, I think, appreciate what's happening around us, to leverage the voices of nature, the voices that are naturally occurring in our business. I can't thank you enough for joining us at this late hour in South Africa. Please reciprocate in kind, folks. Go to brilliancecx.com, check it out, see if there's not a solution for you there as well. All right, that's the end of the show for today. Let me give you a preview for next week. We'll have Micah Solomon, the great Micah Solomon, who wrote Ignore Your Customers. And of course, they'll go somewhere else. Chris Racinos, who's in my book, Stronger Through Adversity. She was in the front lines at a major hospital in Los Angeles on the COVID unit. We're going to talk about how do you have extreme adversity. So that's some personal experiences in her life that have just been devastating. And she keeps coming back and helps us all spirit. And then on the 6th of next month, we will have Rebecca Heiss. Dr. Heiss is a biologist who really wants to help us leverage kind of our natural instincts for our own personal growth and development and for life success. So we'll take all of that coming at you soon. If you like today's show, here's what I would ask you to do. Please share it with somebody. Let the brilliance of Samantha be known unto the planet. So I would encourage you to do that. And also, I'm going to start asking folks to just drop me a line. If you want to be on our newsletter list, drop me a line and let us know that. And then we only do a newsletter once a month, so we're not going to bombard you with great content on that. And then also, if you let me know one specific thing, how are you coming through this pandemic stronger through the adversity of it? I'm going to select someone who gives me their answers. I'll be sharing those answers in various forms. But if you share your answer and we select it, we will be giving you one of our many books. Maybe it's Stronger Through Adversity. Maybe it's The Airbnb Way. One of those books. We'll get something out to you in response. I want to thank you all for participating on the show today. And please, again, share this with someone that you think might benefit from managing their complaints more effectively. All right, we'll catch you next week on this Joseph Michelli live stream.